Hello and welcome back to another how to paint tutorial. This time we're going to be doing a new color scheme that I've never done before, so it might be horrible. We're going to be trying out Salamanders, and of course to jump right in, we're going to be doing a undercoat. We're going to be using our kind of classic Abaddon black, like I feel like we do with 90% of these. And we'll try not to peak the microphone too much moving forwards, my apologies. We are going to be starting out with this size 2 brush, just to kind of get a little bit quicker on the draw here, as opposed to our smaller brush we were using in our kind of last few videos if you watched our Acadian painting. And make sure that our paint is nice and thin, as always. I should also mention that we are primed already. I do a nice layer of Vallejo. It's technically airbrush primer, but it works for just standard brushing it on as well. So that is already applied. I try to mention that in all my videos, or at least the start of all my different series. Sometimes I do forget. I think in my last one, again, the Cadians, I forgot, and someone called me out in the comments on it. So I do want to make sure I touch on that real quick. I haven't done Salamanders, as I mentioned, and I'm kind of going off someone's paint scheme that I saw on Reddit. Essentially, our two main components are going to be this undercoat Abaddon black, and then a kind of layered coat on top of that with warpstone green. I don't know if it's going to be great. Warpstone's a layer color, as opposed to a base paint, and I don't really have too much experience with those. I know they're a little bit thinner than the base coats tend to be, so we're probably going to have to do multiple layers, if not, 3, 4 maybe, whereas normally we're used to doing 2. So we're going to kind of roll the dice on it. I don't expect it to turn out terrible, but I've been wrong before, and I'm entirely ready to be wrong again. And we're just gonna kind of roll the dice. So we're jumping into this blind. You are equally as blind as I am in this endeavor. So at least we're on the same footing here. Now I've seen a lot of talk recently about the new Warhammer, Space Marine update. Obviously, it's Warhammer. I've seen some stuff on it. I know there's like a new level. There's a new boss. It looks oddly reminiscent of Helldivers, but in a good way. It's they're somewhat comparable, but they're different enough that they really aren't. I see some people make the comparison pretty often, and I just have to kind of shake my head a little bit. They're two very, very different games. But something that it got me thinking about, and I tend to brainstorm this quite a lot when it comes to Warhammer video games, is that I would give all of the money in my pockets for a Battlefront game or even a Battlefield game retextured as Warhammer. And as much as I would love to play something like that as Space Marines, I think Imperial Guard would be so much cooler. It's just a massive firefight. You could even do like Traitor Guard versus Imperial Guard. Las guns firing on both sides. You can have vehicles, tanks. They have planes and whatnot. All of it just Imperial Guard themed. I think it would be so sweet. And there's already like an Arma mod for it, but I think like it having a dedicated game itself, especially something like with the Battlefield engine. I forget what it's called. I think it's like the Frostbite engine. Just imagine that, right? Just imagine just hundreds of Imperial Guardsmen stuck in a trench shooting at each other, fighting Traitor Guard. The terrain is blowing up around you as chimeras and Lehman Russes are tearing past just on a massive scale. Like, how awesome would that be? And it kind of shocks me that there isn't a kind of Imperial Guard FPS out already. Like, obviously I love Space Marine. I love Space Marine 2. But man, give me more Imperial Guard. Give it to me. I'm tired of these RTSs. You know, I like Dawn of War. I like what's the new one called? Not Bolt Gun. That's an FPS. The one where you play as Blood Angels. That new one. I'm totally blanking on the name of it, but you know, I love that. There is, I think, an Imperial Guard DLC coming soon for that, which is great. You know, I love more Guard representation, but give me a proper FPS. That is all I ask for. And I think even in Space Marine 2, there's kind of a opening for that. They have like a Horde mode coming out, and honestly, it's the same engine as World War Z, right? And I just kind of don't think like a Horde mode would go great playing as the Space Marines. I think that'd be kind of dull. Like, there's only so much you can do with that. And just mowing down hordes of enemies is cool on its own. But unless they do some like massive changes, I don't really see them, really expanding on it too much. Like, think of Gears of War's Horde mode, right? Like, that wasn't fun because you were mowing down tons of enemies. It was fun because you had upgrades and fortifications, and you could unlock like the little robot guy that you could drive around, like the mech suit thing. And there was the whole point system, like that made it fun. And without that or something like that, I just don't really see the Horde mode in Space Marine 2 being that popular, really. Unless they add in like fortifications and stuff like that. So my proposed alternative, right, is you're not playing as Space Marines. You're playing as the Imperial Guard. They have the models in the game. I'm sure they already have all the animations and rigging done. Like, just switch it over. That's really it. I would love it. And like double the team size. Right now you can have like 3, make it like 6 or 8. I think it'd be great. I think it would be absolutely great. But that's just my dream. I will probably die wondering where my Imperial Guard FPS is, but that's fine. That's fine. It's not like it's tearing at my soul every waking moment. Not at all. Not at all. And actually, let me move my light around a little bit. Hopefully we can make this a little bit easier to see. I've got 2 lights on my desk, and they're really nice. They're posable, and they're pretty bright. I might get a 3rd one at some point, but I tend to move them around a lot because I use my desk for a plethora of things. When I'm not painting, it's like my computer desk. So I move my stuff around near constantly, and I could just never get it back in that like perfect position where it was. It's kind of annoying. But we are almost finished with our first base coat here. There's still some bits and bobs I have to touch up on. And normally I'm not too bothered about it, having a little bit of that undercoat shine through, like that gray, that primer. But it's kind of extra important that we get all of it this time, because I think with that layer paint being our kind of main coat that we're going to be relying on for at least like our main armor, not so much the weapons and whatnot, I think it's going to really shine through if we don't do a solid coverage with this undercoat, and I really want to be careful with that. Because as much as I enjoy slapping 6 layers of paint on something, if we could avoid it, that would be much preferable. And of course, we want to get all these little nooks and crannies. I haven't even touched the side of this guy's weapon. I do have some kind of wacky ideas I want to try out on this. I know some people kind of paint like flames and stuff on their salamanders, and I kind of want to try doing that. It's going to be freehand, and I'm not great with freehand. I actually rarely ever do it. So it might be terrible, but I'm willing to give it a try. And if it goes well, I think that'll open the way for us to do kind of more of it on our future projects. So here's hoping, right? But I also don't have that many colors picked out for this specific model. This is going to be a multi-part video, because I do still have like 5 or 6, but usually we have like closer to 10. So it's going to be a little bit more simple and straightforward compared to some of the other projects we've done. And we want to make sure we get back behind all these little crevices, because otherwise I will forget about them and it will look horrible. Now, I've mentioned it a few videos ago when I made the switch. Normally I paint with a paint handle, the Citadel brand, and I think it's great. It helps tremendously when I'm painting. But because of the way my camera's set up and my tripod and everything, I really can't use it anymore, because I struggle to kind of keep things within frame if I do. So my hand is currently in quite a bit of pain holding it like this. I'm kind of cramping up, and it kind of sucks, and I'm a little bit more shaky. So if I do make mistakes more often than previously, do please forgive me for that. I promise I'm trying my best here. And we have just a tiny little bit to go, and then we can move on to our next layer. And we want to make sure we get right underneath that kind of power pack. I guess it's like a fusion reactor, technically, the backpack is. I did a little bit more reading into it recently, and that was kind of something I discovered, which is cool to know. You know, I do like kind of like armor information. I don't know if any of you guys remembered it, or if you're even old enough to, but as we kind of switch paints, I'll continue my tangent in a moment. Apologies. Our next layer is going to be this warpstone glow. We'll see how it goes. We'll definitely see. And this is a brand new pot, so it might take me a second to open. But when I was a kid and Star Wars episodes 1, 2, and 3 had just come out, this is before any of the newer movies, and those were all terrible, but that's an opinion for another day. They had a book that came out, and it was called like the Armors and Weapons Compendium or something, and I remember getting it at my school's library all the time, which is kind of surprising. They had a weapons thing there, but it had like everything Star Wars weapons related in it, and it was so cool to see as a kid. And I kind of wish they had something similar like that for Warhammer. Like, besides, like, the codexes and everything, obviously. Like, give me just a whole book, like a picture book, full-on, like, child's picture book. And just fill it up with, like, all the different types of las weapons and all that. And bolters and tanks and planes and whatnot. I would absolutely love something like that. And I assure you, as a kid, it was the coolest thing ever, having that book. I think I checked it out, like, literally so many times, and I just read it over and over and over again. I don't know if you guys have probably seen it. There's a meme, it's Count Dooku, and it has his, like, pose, and it says, like, signature look of authority. I believe that's where that picture actually came from, so there you go. A little bit of Star Wars lore for you in a Warhammer video. And I think our paint's actually a little bit too thin, unfortunately. I mixed in kind of the normal amount of water. I tend to, not even thinking that this was a layer instead of a base paint. So, unfortunately, we're going to have to be doing some more layers of this. But we're going to let that dry first, and we'll probably do it next time. We'll just kind of continue on with everything else we're doing. I was warned that warpstone is kind of a hard color to paint. It's up there with like white. It's not fun, I can tell you from experience now. But honestly, it's not that bad. I think with 2 or 3 layers, it'll kind of stack together pretty neatly. So we'll keep going, and we'll just kind of hope for the best. Nothing else. We'll just kind of strip it all and restart, right? I'm just kidding. There's already too much work put in to do all that. I'd have to scrap the whole video and do it all again. And I'd rather just show my mistakes and then try it again in the future if it's that bad. These shoulder pads I'm not going to worry about. We're going to kind of keep those being black, but the arms and everything else we are going to continue on with our green here. And we are going to have to do some armor trim, unfortunately. We got away from it for a couple of videos when we were doing Arcadians, but now that we're back doing Space Marines, more armor trim is back on the menu. And actually, let me dry my brush off, because I just cleaned it and I was about to do the same exact mistake where I had a ton of water in my brush. But we don't need it. This paint is already plenty thin. And make sure we get the back of the legs real nicely. It's one of those spots that really doesn't like to take paint unless you really focus on it. And the nice thing is, as we kind of get to finishing this, if our green doesn't look too neat, is that we are going to be doing our flames, and we're going to be doing some, work on the gun and everything, and hopefully some other little minor details to kind of distract from it. So it's not going to be just all green monstrosity like something like our Ultramarines would be. So that might be our kind of saving grace there. But I digress. We're just going to keep powering through, kind of hope for the best as we do. And another weird spot to get is this kind of like that front, those little balls there. Another one that really doesn't like to catch paint too well. And the helmet is full of those little spots, specifically the back of it. I don't know if you can really see. My lighting's still kind of weird. But there's a couple of little divots that really just do not like to catch paint at all. So we want to take extra care to do that. And as we kind of get to the end of our video here, I do want to shout out a couple of things. I have a Patreon. If you guys enjoy this video and you like the stuff that I make and you want to see more, regardless, I'm going to keep doing more, but a way to help me kind of expedite the process and do more, videos more often is to check out my Patreon. All of that, anything that gets sent to my Patreon goes right back into buying models and paints and brushes and all of that. So it's kind of a good way to, support the channel. Especially if you want to see more often. Otherwise, as always, feel free to comment, like, and subscribe. Mainly comment. It's all good for analytics, obviously, but I really just care more about getting your guys' feedback. So please, if you have anything you guys want to say, feel free to drop it in the comments, whether it's good criticism, whether it's, compliments, whether you want to see different techniques, different models. It doesn't have to be 40K. If you want to see me do Age of Sigmar stuff, or even like a whole nother game, there's tons and tons of miniatures out there. And, I'm willing to take a look at all of them. I really don't mind. So if you guys have any specific choices you want to see, feel free to let me know. I'll definitely check them out. I do have some Tau planned for the future. I actually have a couple of models on my desk here. These like stealth war suits I got primed and ready to go. So that's going to be our next project. But after that, I'm pretty open. If you guys have any specific like paint jobs you want me to do for our Space Marines, I still have a couple of those guys left. I think I have like 3 that I still need to paint besides this dude. So, I'm always open to suggestions in terms of that. But otherwise, that's really it. I'm just looking for you guys' feedback. And it means a lot to me when I do get it. And, I will respond to you, assuming it's something that I can respond to. If you just say, hey, it's a dumb video, well, then I can't really respond to that in any meaningful way. So, obviously, it's dependable. But I'll try my best. But as we kind of wrap things up here, Next time we will come back, we will do another layer or two. We are definitely going to need it. Our paint is super thin. It is a layer paint, I guess. So it's going to take a couple tries, but I'm confident that we will eventually get the effect that we want, the result that we want, I guess. But I'm going to leave it there for now. I want to thank you guys very much for watching, and hopefully I will see you guys in the next video.